I want to ask you something before we even get started with season 2. Welcome back, Boo Bears. I have missed y'all and I am so excited to be back here today. But let's go ahead and jump into this. Now, if someone walked up to you right now and asked, not what do you do, but who are you? What would you say? Take a minute and I want you to actually think about this, okay? Because you see, most of us, if we are honest, would of course start with our name. I'm Roslyn Christina Middle, that's who I am, right? Or we would lead with like our title or a role, something, maybe something that we have accomplished or something that we are working toward, but because that is what we have been taught, right? That is the answer that makes the most sense in a world that basically rewards output. But I am not asking what do you, excuse me, I am not asking what you do. I am asking who you are. And if those two things are hard to separate right now, then baby, this episode is probably this entire season. I haven't decided yet, but this is definitely for you. So stay tuned. All right, now, hey y'all, welcome back to the High Value Covenant Woman. In case you didn't know, I am Roslyn Christina Miller, and if you are new here, welcome. I am so glad that you found us. This is actually a space for women who are serious um, about becoming everything that God has for them to become, about fulfilling the purpose that He has for you while you're here on earth, right? Now, everything we spent in season 1 building the 5 foundations of a high value covenant woman, the framework, the wording, or the language for it. None of that probably really meant too much to you until you understand where it came from, right? And we are actually going to start there. Y'all, Boo Bears, it is time for me to start giving you pieces of myself, parts of my testimony, okay? This is not a detour. This is actually the foundation of how the high value covenant woman was started or began to be birthed, quite honestly. Now, if you are new here and you have no idea what I am referring to, then please go back and review season 1. I have the podcast and the blogs are still available on any platform did you click on. The blogs are only available on Substack though, the high value covenant woman.substack.com. However, if you just want an easy way just to get all of the information at once, I am so excited to announce that by the end of this month, I will be releasing the first book under the High Value Covenant Woman, which is everything from season 1 combined into one book for you. So that's everything from the podcast and everything from the blogs combined into one book for you. So I will have a closer date for you later on. I'm not sure yet, y'all. I am running everything by myself. I'm not complaining. I love what I do. It takes a little bit more time, even though I'm just one, because I'm just one person, right? So that's part of the reason why I didn't launch season 2 on May 15th. I had to push it back to June 5th, and I almost missed this deadline. But I really, really had to get that book completed. So now I'm just going back in and doing the formatting. I have the title, I'm sorry, I have the cover page, the book cover completed. I am so excited about that. It looks awesome. And I'm going to put that up on Friday as well too, so that at least you can see what's coming, right? But y'all, thank you so much for those of you who listen, those of you who are just joining. Thank you so much for writing it out with me, because this is something that I am so passionate about. You know, this is for a space for Christian single women who desire marriage, right? And you shouldn't be ashamed to voice how you're feeling in regards to whether it's been taking so long or you feel like it's never going to happen. This is a community for that, because I'm showing you the proper thinking that should be taking place, right? And also what you should be doing during your waiting season, okay? Now, to pick up off of there as far as with myself, because these first three episodes are about my story, okay? A little bit of my testimony that I'm breaking down for you. Um, but I was like that. And if you read in any of the blogs or go back and look at any of my older YouTube videos, I've told you that I was single I have been single for the longest time, y'all, about 19, 20 years. I don't know, I've lost count now. But I didn't understand what I was supposed to be doing, right? And now that I have an understanding of that, I have been able to look back on my life and realized what happened to me, what took so long for me to get to this realization. And it also helped me to develop or God spoke through me with the five foundations of the high value covenant woman. Okay. So, hey, let's go ahead and get into this. You know, um, I'm not sure if I'm going to stick with the title of this episode, which I have right now as Who Am I? The Identity Crisis I Didn't Know I Had. And I just don't want the word crisis to seem dramatic, because I trust me, I'm not trying to be extra. A crisis does not always look like falling apart, right? Sometimes it looks like doing everything right and still feeling like something is missing. Sometimes it looks like chasing the next thing and the next thing, but never quite feeling like enough. And y'all, that was me for a long time. So let's go ahead and jump into the story. I'm going to take y'all back to my childhood a little bit. Not all the way back, just the fifth and the sixth grade. I think this is important because this is setting up this is the foundation of where I started. Okay. Now, in fifth and sixth grade, I was tall, tall for my age. And of course, the other kids took notice, and y'all, they was mean as crap. Okay. There was actually only one other girl in my class who was a little bit taller than me, and we both stuck out. Okay. We couldn't change it, we couldn't hide. We were both tall, right? And one boy in the class had a nickname for us. He called us the Twin Towers, and his name was Ian. Ugh, I can't stand any little boy with the name Ian now. I'm kidding, I'm kidding. Ians are cool. But no, he was a short little thing too. I remember that he was so short. But he would go around calling us the Twin Towers. And I hated it so much because, when you're 10 years old and you're still trying to figure out yourself and, if you're okay, it would make me cry, right? I would come home upset, and my mama would tell me that, the boys were just, they hadn't hit their growth spurts yet. So they were a little bit jealous, and that's why, they were picking fun at me, right? And I know she was meaning to be comforting, and it was, but looking back now, I see something else. I was 10 years old and already learning to measure myself through other people's words. Y'all, come on now. I didn't know it yet. I just knew that the name hurt, and I didn't understand that I was already, even then, building my identity around what other people decided to call me, right? And this is at 10 years old. And the funny part is, I'm not exactly short. I'm the average height for a woman. I'm 5'5" now. But just back then, I was broken. Okay. And then here comes the middle school years. Now, y'all already know. Y'all already know that middle school is just when all your hormones are coming out. And I don't know anyone who could say they had an awesome time in middle school, maybe high school, maybe elementary, but I do not I cannot recall anyone ever saying that middle school was the time of their life. If you had the time of your life in middle school, please comment. Please let me know because I am really curious to hear. Okay. But anyway, so middle school arrived and the height thing faded away, right? Puberty. Everybody's equal in that. Okay. But something else kind of showed up to take the place of what I went through as far as with the height jokes, right? There was a boy. There's always a boy, right? And I had dated this boy over the summer. And it was, we were boyfriend and girlfriend, right? But we never broke up officially. Honestly, did I move away that summer? I think so because he actually lived in the same apartment complex as like my uncles. And that's where I met him. So, yeah, I think I was just down there visiting for the summer, and then I went back home to Maryland. Yes, I'm from North Carolina, but I grew up in Maryland most of my life, or basically back and forth to tell you the truth. But that's neither here nor there. So, anyway, we never really broke up. And so I had actually moved back to North Carolina my seventh grade year, which was my first year in middle school. Okay. And what happened? Okay. So it's my first year in middle school. So I already didn't know anyone. And then you have all these hormones jumping around, right? And so I didn't want to look like a loser or anything. It seemed like I didn't even have a boyfriend. So since me and Matthew, that was his name, since me and Matthew didn't break up, I'm like, well, I'm not technically lying if I say I'm dating somebody named Matthew, right? And Lord, that started like just a whole host of things. Um, but to sum it up, because I can't remember back that far, I ended up being in two verbal altercations before I even knew how to open up my locker, okay? Over this boy. And one of it, was with a girl. We were going to lunch or something, and she had heard me talking about this boy named Matthew. And I know you're probably like, well, how does she know it's even the same Matthew? It's like my brother is named, I have one of my younger brothers is named Matthew, as a matter of fact. But she somehow everything was worked out to where they knew the Matthew that I was talking about. Okay, because I think it was like the apartment complex where I said we met, and I knew that he lived. I think that's how they figured it out. But I got into two verbal altercations because of that, and child, I held my ground, but I was still shaking. And thank God my family moved out of North Carolina and we moved back to Maryland that following year. So that particular chapter of my life kind of closed pretty fast, right? But here is what I didn't see at the time. Middle school taught me a lesson. Child, I ain't never signed up to learn. It told me that my value was connected to whether somebody chose me, whether a boy wanted me, whether other girls saw me as competition or not. I thought I was just surviving drama, when in actuality, I was absorbing a certain definition of myself. Now, if any of you are following that, if you feel that same way, if you had, those hormonal troubles in middle school, put it in the comments and let me know, okay? Now, I'm sorry if y'all heard my cough, this mute. I don't know how to work this mute button. I have new podcast equipment, so this is my first time working it out, okay? Forgive me. All right. Now, we went through elementary school, we went through middle school. Now, let's get to high school. Now, this in particular is my ninth and 10th grade years, okay? You see, I thought I was done with all the nonsense from middle school, but I was wrong. You see, in the ninth and 10th grade, there was a group of popular girls who decided to bring me into their circle. At first, I thought, they was trying to be friendly, but no, they were the meanest little heifers I ever met in my life. And yes, and I said it right. Now, if you ever been a teenage girl, any point in your life, then you already know that it was nothing kind about a group of popular girls wanting to bring an unknown into their circle, right? It was actually a strategy for them to humiliate me up close day after day after day. And through that humiliation, they gave me this name. Okay. It was a nickname. Lord, I get to say the nickname. They called me Boopsie. Boobsie. Boopsie. They said, and I quote, "You look like a boopsie." And they would laugh and laugh every single time they called me that name. For 2 years, 2 years, I suffered through that name. No, I never told them I didn't like it. And it was like, well, why didn't you stand up for yourself? Come on now. I was still the new girl. Everywhere I went, it seemed like every year, every 2 years, I was always the new girl. So I was just trying to get a friend, trying to keep a friend. And I stayed close to them just so I could belong somewhere. And that is the part that still gets me when I think about it. I knew they were not nice to me. I knew they didn't care for me because, something inside of me knew that. But belonging to this cruel group of girls felt better than being alone, right? But thankfully, guess what? My family moved again. And my junior year, I was in a new school, new city, and this time I was done with all of the nonsense. You hear me? I came in wearing my heels and professional clothes every single day to the point people, even administrators and staff, thought I was a teacher or thought, I was part of the staff or something. So I didn't have any any issues my 11th and 12th grade year. I won't say any, but nothing major. Okay. So, that that part was calming for me, thankfully. So, but listen, that wasn't confidence. The fact how I dressed, right? It was more of an armor. And I had learned that if you looked the part, people leave you alone. And I was very, very tired of not being left alone, of being picked on. So, but what I didn't understand was that armor and identity are not the same thing. Now, the lesson of all of this, people calling me the Twin Towers, people calling me Boopsy, none of those names were who I was, none of them. And here's the thing I want you to sit with for a minute with me. The names people put on us are not always spoken out loud. Sometimes they are labels that we quietly accept. Labels the world assigns based on what we look like, what we have not accomplished yet, what relationship we are not in, what degree we do not have. We accept them because we do not yet know what to replace them with. And that was me. I did not know what to replace it with. So by the time I stepped into adulthood, I did something most women do without realizing it. I started building my identity around what I could accomplish. If I could not know who I was, at least I could know what I was working toward. And maybe if I got enough of it right, that would tell me. So then here I am in adulthood, right? Here's a recap of what I thought I wanted. I've mentioned this before, it's also in the book. I thought I wanted to be a lawyer. I wanted to be a singer. I wanted to be married with 3 kids by 30. I had the whole thing mapped out. I'm from North Carolina, y'all. We plan things. But guess what? None of it happened. Not the way that I planned it. Not law school, not the music career, not the marriage by 30. One by one, every plan that I had made for myself either did not open or closed before I got to the door. And each time something fell through, I looked for something else to attach to. I took um, I took a gap year after high school graduation, not because I wanted to, but because I didn't have the financial aid to start. So I became a volunteer in a school, and I was very good at it. Won several awards, but once again, that didn't tell me who I was. Then I completed a year and a half of college, and I had to stop for the same reason that I couldn't begin. I didn't have the financial aid. So I signed up for the Army Reserves and moved back to North Carolina after that because things still were not clicking for me. You see, I was not falling apart. I was functioning. And that's, I think, enough of us don't talk about that. You know, you can be fully functional and still be completely lost about who you are. You see, I was going to work, I was showing up, I was doing things, but and I still had goals and dreams, right? But everything I was doing was in service of becoming something I could point to, say, see, look at me, here I am, this is what I'm doing now. Now, eventually, I did land a job that I held for about 8 years. It was in corporate America, and it was a nice, decent, stable job that I hated every single day, except for when I was able to move to the travel department and become a corporate trainer. But still, it wasn't me. And but what really got to me was when the company started bringing in outside candidates for a leadership program that they were building. And these candidates had one specific thing that I didn't have: a degree. I did not have my degree. Even though I went to school for about a year and a half, I never completed it, right? And that had me feeling so low. I felt, I won't say I felt worthless. I would cover things up and say, well, I don't need a degree for what I want to do anyway, because I always wanted to be in the entertainment industry. I wanted to be a singer, right? And moving back to North Carolina, I had discovered my love of writing, right? And I was like, well, I don't need a degree to do any of those things. But the thing was, I wasn't doing any of that. Well, not, full time, right? But after that job had closed, I was like, you know what? I am tired of feeling low and feeling ashamed because I don't have my degree. And I did try in between to go back to school, but it was always the same issue. I didn't have the financial aid and I couldn't pay for it. But finally, I found a school, Gifford College, not ashamed. I loved my Quaker school, okay? But I was able to go back to school and get my degree, even though I had to work 55 hours at work and then go to school at night. That was so hard. I didn't do that the whole time, y'all. My last year, I was like, you know what, bump this. I had to close out my 401k. And I was like, I'm going to live off this for a little while so that I can finish school because that was the most important thing to me in that moment, right? But I earned my degree and I wore that accomplishment like it was going to change the temperature of the room when I walked in, y'all. I just knew that when I walked in, everyone's going to be like, that girl has a degree, and it was going to mean something. But then I spent, well, first, before we get there, y'all let me know in the comments if that's how you felt when you finally got your degree. If anyone actually had to go back to school, you know, you're an adult now and you having to go back and still work a full-time job. Let me know how you actually felt after you got that degree. Now I'm feeling like I'm on top of the world now because I've graduated. Then I spent 3 years trying to get a job that would actually use the degree that I had worked so hard for. 3 years. 3 years. Feel it for a second, y'all. Because I know let me know if anyone out there is not working in the field that they got their degree in. Mine is history. It's a long story. I won't get into that right now. But yes, my degree is in history with a minor in criminal justice. But let me know if you are not working in the field that your degree is in. And how do you feel about that? But if you have ever done everything you were supposed to do and still ended up in a waiting room you did not ask for, you know how that feels. You do. Now, moving into the part that caught up to my current life, not currently now, but up to 3 years ago, I finally did get a job, and I landed a job in the school system. I started out as a substitute teacher first, and then I became the school treasurer, in which, for the record, they need to rename it to the school manager because, honey, I was running that school, okay? Scheduling, operations, finances, relationships with the kids, with the parents, with the teachers. I was doing human resources, I was doing trainings, like everything. But my title was still classified staff. And in the school system, classified staff and certified staff do not, by any means, live in the same world. You see, teachers and administrators, they have professional developments. Some locations only, celebrate teachers and administrative staff, like Teacher of the Year, Principal of the Year, that forth. They have awards and bonuses. And some of the admin staff were even getting up to five-figure end of year bonuses. Me being the classified staff, y'all, I had to fight one summer for a little $500 bonus that they had promised me for taking on extra work for summer school. And guess what? They still ain't paid it to me. And then at the end of that summer, I remember sitting with a few teacher friends who were in my school for a professional development. And these teachers that I liked, I respected. But I was listening to them talk about how well things were going for them, their careers, their personal lives, everything was flourishing. And I felt something that I hadn't really quite felt before, or maybe I didn't even acknowledge that I felt it. It wasn't jealousy, it was something more like invisibility. Like, I have been working this hard for so long, and the system I was inside of had already decided I did not count the same way. And it's ironic that it was a school system, right? Mm, I'm not going to cry. Mm, okay. And then, um, around the same time, I had met someone, a man I genuinely believed God had placed in my path. I believe that. I know because he came right after I prayed. But because I did not understand my identity, because I had been measuring myself against titles and credentials and accomplishments for so long, I looked at this man and I looked at myself, and I decided I was not enough. My job was not right. My bank account was too low. My credentials were not what they should be. I was not what I should be. So I started performing. I overgave. I overcompensated. I overdid everything trying to make this man see that I was worth it. You see, I was this little dancing monkey performing tricks so that somebody would look at me and decide that I was enough, when God had already settled that question before I drew my first breath. That is the moment. That is where the crisis was living, not in the bullying, not in the failed plans, but right there in a place where I did not know who I was. And I felt choosing somebody else's choosing would tell me. Now, let me say this before we close today, because someone may hear the part about having a low self esteem and get a little bit confused. I want you to understand I never hated myself. I was not the woman looking in the mirror and calling herself ugly. I didn't think I was the most glamorous thing in the world, but, I thought it was pretty decent. I got up, I showed up, and tried every single day. I had confidence in what I could do, but confidence and identity are not the same thing. You see, confidence is I can do this, but identity is I know who I am when I can't. So I had all the confidence, but I was missing identity. And when that confidence runs out, your plans and your plans start to fall apart when the degree does not open the door, when the relationship doesn't materialize the way you imagined it. If you do not know who you are underneath all of that, you will spend your life trying to earn something God already gave you. And that is not a self esteem problem, it is an identity problem. And it is one of the most common things that I see in other women, as well as myself, who are otherwise doing everything right. Before we go today, I want you to know that by the end of the season, we are going to revisit the five foundations of the High Value Covenant Woman Framework. Okay. Well, I'll probably do the first three episodes because we have to keep moving on, y'all. We have to move into phase two. So phase one was where we introduced the five foundations, and I need for you to go back and review all of that material or wait for the book. But you have to remove it. I'm sorry. You have to review that material. It's very important because we're talking about discernment, stewardship, covenant, legacy, emotional regulation. Every single one of them requires you to know who you are first. And if you are building on anything else, you are building on ground that can shift. So let me leave you with this today. And I want you to sit with that question I opened with. Don't answer it the way the world taught you to answer it. Just notice what comes up when you try to answer it. What do you reach for? What do you list? What does it feel like when you try to separate who you are from what you have done? Because what I found out after all the plans and all the striving and all the performing is that the answer was never going to come from any of those places. It was already settled. And in the next episode, I'm going to tell you what happened when that realization cost me more than I knew I was carrying. So, homework assignment, take out your journal or just sit quietly for a few minutes and answer this question. When everything you planned for yourself falls through, what do you call yourself? Write down the first answer that comes to you, not the right answer, the real one. And that's your starting point. All right, my loves. If no one has told you today, God loves you, and so do I. Welcome back to season 2 of the High Value Covenant Woman. And I cannot wait to see what this season has in store for us. Have a great, great week, guys, and I will be back with you next Friday. Bye bye.